Welcome to this week's episode of Startup Bright. I am your host, Nikolai Kolev. Our guest today is Garrett Fritz, right? From Challengr app.
Challengr, yep, that's right. With no E at the end because it's a cool startup that doesn't like vowels. Right? Plus all the domains are taken, so you
Of course. So I don't think we met before, right?
Nope, this is the first time, yeah.
This is the first time. I have a lot of startup founders coming from Kodu Startup, and I believe you pitched at that event, right? Yeah. I wasn't able to participate in that event, but Donovan was so nice to introduce us. So here we go.
There we go.
Right. So I here suggest founders to start with their, standard, regular, official pitch. You ready?
Sure. Yeah, we'll give it a go.
Okay.
So Challengr is a dating app. Specifically, it is a challenge-based dating app. And so what that means is that on Challengr, no one can actually talk to anyone unless they either respond to someone's challenge or you respond to one of theirs. And so a challenge is just a question or a dare. It can be as simple as, what was the last book you read? Or as complicated as, show me a video of you doing 10 pull-ups. You're never matching with me if that's your challenge. But either way, that's how you get discovered, is through your challenge. So you create your challenge and it's out there and you start getting responses to it. And you as a challenger get to decide if I'm going to accept video, text, or image responses, whatever it is. And so once you start getting these responses, you either dislike them and they just go away, or you can like the response, at which point you become an instant match with that person and you can start talking to each other. And so right away what happens is the people that you're matched with have instantly proven that, one, you have something in common with them, the topic of the challenge itself, and two, that they've demonstrated that they're actually going to put some effort into communicating with you, since they've already done this additional bit of responding to your challenge. And so right away what that does is that ensures that your matches are more likely to actually initiate conversation, because you also have this built-in icebreaker of the challenge and response. And so no more matches for the sake of matches. Now right away, when I tell anyone, hey, I started a dating app, the first thing they say is, holy cow, man, what are you doing? The dating app, you're going up against some really titans in this industry, Tinder, Match, Hinge, the whole spectrum. But realistically, if you're looking at some of the statistics in the dating field, people hate dating apps. And I don't know if you're single, you have any single friends, but you ask any single friend what they think about their dating app today, and the complaints just come pouring in. And realistically, an app installed today, a dating app installed today, only has a 1% chance of staying on the device 3 months from now. They all get uninstalled. So what's happening? Why are they so awful? Well, really what you can do is pretty well categorize all the dating apps that are out there into two buckets. You have your meat farms, which is just swipe left, right, up, down, sideways. And on the other spectrum, you have your algorithm apps, or your relationship type apps, where you fill out a lengthy profile, you answer a bunch of questions, you have to answer the dreaded question, talk about yourself, which, I don't know about you, but when you ask me about that, it's a deer in the headlights, very difficult to do. And then you have to rely on this algorithm to provide you with some matches. And hate to burst the bubble of those algorithm dating apps out there, but there is still no proven released scientific data that any of that matches better than chance. And so really you're kind of out of luck, which is why there's so much dissatisfaction here. On the swipe to match apps, yeah, you get a lot of matches, especially if you're attractive. Not so much me, but if you're hot, you get a lot of matches. But that rarely do those matches convert into conversations, let alone dates. So you're just on there spending your time swiping left, right, and even when you get a match, it's just, okay, well that's great, but now what? So there's a lot of dissatisfaction there. So we're solving that by filtering out the matches that you get by people who have completed this challenge response handshake. So it's a lot more efficient. And what we end up offering is the highest ratio of dates to matches, which is our gold standard, our main KPI that we're looking at.
Okay.
And so the app, Challengr, again, no E at the end, is live on the iOS and for iPhone and Android. We went live in early September of this year, and we launched at a couple of in-person events around the LA area. We went to a street fair in Hermosa over the Labor Day weekend. That was a 3-day affair. And then we also did a day event on Abbot Kinney, which is in Venice. And we talked to thousands of people. We got hundreds of people signed up for the app, and just resounding positive feedback for the idea. And we're off to the races now. So download us now. It's not in like a private beta or anything. It's totally public. I started the app myself. Again, my name's Garrett. I have an aerospace engineering degree from MIT. Of course, right? Of course, that leads into building a dating app.
Yeah, it's very logical,
right?
When you put it that way.
Yeah, we can get into that later, but really, I transitioned out of aerospace about 5 years ago when I moved to LA, and I started building social networks. So I built some social networks that included the official social network of Major League Baseball, the Los Angeles Kings, Liverpool FC if you're into soccer, Slipknot the band if you're into metal, and a few other ones too. And after that, I moved on to another startup, which was actually the core of the idea of Challengr, which again, we can get into a little bit later. But I've been working on this full time for almost a year. But really, we only formed the company a couple months ago when we first got our initial round of funding. And so that's the concept. The problem that we're going after is we're solving the dissatisfaction in the dating world. And it doesn't particularly matter that there's a lot of apps out there because, again, for those people who are suffering through using a dating app, they don't have one installed, they have 4. And they bounce from the one to the next to the next. So it's just a matter of getting the word out there, letting people know we're there, and hitting that critical mass and getting off to the races.
So let me ask you, was this based on personal experience, or how did you come up with this idea?
Sure. Well,
Is it related to MIT?
No. So it is kind of unusual how we got to this path. One, I'm married, right? Yeah. And I've been married for 3 years. I've known my wife for 10. So no, I'm not currently suffering through this dating app peril. And it was a little circuitous how we actually got to this result. And the key of it came at a startup that I was at a couple of years ago. I was helping build this more aspirational social network. And it was targeted at young girls and women. It's called Maverick. It's off the store now. They eventually went out of business due to some investor fall through. But really what happened there, it was still a challenge and response interaction pattern, which is the core of Challengr. However, it was more geared towards helping these young girls and women find their voice, kind of help them express their creativity in kind of a protected sense. And the girls loved it. How that differed is the only people creating the challenges were these mentors, these celebrities, athletes, who would challenge these girls to do these tasks. And then the girls had this very narrow, specific call to action for them to respond to, which is a lot easier than the ask on like a YouTube or a TikTok, which is just go. And so that really scared a lot of people away. But because these celebrities can ask this very specific question to the girls were more likely to respond. And it ended up building a pretty close-knit community between these, and it was kind of a scaled mentorship approach. And while I was building it, it was just kind of a joke at first because we were kind of kicking people off the platform who thought it was a dating app because we didn't actually express on the App Store listing, this is for young girls to kind of express their creativity. We were just finding them by meeting these girl groups and having them on board. So random people were stumbling across the apps and seeing it as, this social network, a lot of attractive people on the App Store listing, this must be a dating app. And so their profile descriptions were something along the lines of new to the LA area, looking to meet someone, et cetera. And so I said, why don't we just lean into this? This is obviously a need out there, as a complete joke, to be fair. But while I mentioned that originally to my coworkers and the founders a little bit, I had also mentioned it to a couple of my friends and my wife's friends who were suffering through this online dating catastrophe that is out there. Right. And they immediately said, wait a minute. This is actually great. And then they would rattle through their complaints. I have to, like I said before, I have to, swipe through every single day to get matches, or I only get, presented 5 matches a day, and they're all terrible. There's a lot of vanity involved in this, and it's just a headache. And as they were rattling off these complaints, every single one of them was solved by this interaction pattern of challenge and response. I can search through challenges to find someone who has a shared interest with me, and then respond right away. I can just create the challenge and sit back and let people come to me. So it's kind of doing dating on relaxation mode, which is nice. And the value propositions went on and on and on. Mm-hmm. So much so that I ended up, doing a couple 100-person survey through an online service there where I, put up the value propositions. I had a little, this is how the app works cartoon and demo. And I had, these 200 singles look through and fill out the questionnaire. And it was a resoundingly positive response from that. Mm-hmm. And 90% of the people who took that survey, all singles, mostly women, said that this was a great idea and they would use use the app. And at that point, it was okay. Maybe we have something here. Let's go ahead and build an MVP. Let's get a couple people on the app, see if it actually holds water, and then really go give it the old college try, get some funding behind it, and let it go off to the races. So that's, long story short, how the app idea came about. It wasn't solving some personal problem of mine. It just happened to be I as a previous engineer, now computer scientist, programmer, whatever, I happen to have all the skills, at my disposal to be able to build this platform all by myself. I didn't need anyone. So that was kind of nice. So I didn't have to, worry about finding a developer or a designer or anything. I was just able to do it all. So I did that, and powered with the research that we had done to kind of indicate that it was that the user interaction would resonate with the actual dating app users. It was a clear choice that we should actually give it a shot. And then we had some initial investors who were pretty excited about it. So here we are today, a month into launch, and we're moving forward and looking to get some more funding to power our marketing.
So this is really interesting what I hear, because usually people with technical skills, they jump right into building their idea.
Right.
You have the tools, you have the skills, and this is your comfort zone. You just do it.
Just build,
right? And I'm guilty of that. Like, I've done this few times. What I'm trying to say is that you actually did this the smart way. You were not married to your idea from the very beginning. You said, let me check what other people say about my idea, and my potential customers are actually liking what they see. And you did the survey, right? Can you talk a little bit more about that? Because in addition to everything, I'm trying to kind of help other founders to understand the process, what is working when you're building a startup.
Yeah, there's a few reasons why what I think had a successful launch, and the things that led us to where we are today. First, the big benefit that I had was I had already built a platform that had toyed around with this challenge and response interaction pattern. So I already knew right away that there were already some signs that this as an interaction pattern is not foreign. And that it was very easy to educate users on, this is how it works. And not only that, but they actually liked it. It was an engaging approach. So right away, one of the big check marks of will users understand this was already settled. A lot of times if you're going out there and you're going to do something brand new, you just make the assumption people will get it. Well, you would be surprised at how much users don't get something unless you're hand holding them through. So right away, there was already some early signs that this would be no problem for people to adopt. And then and so that was big, that I happened to had already worked on something that was very similar in its approach. So that was one check in our favor. And then after that, the big question was, okay, now there's some early signs that this is of demonstrated value when it comes to mentoring and building a social connection in the general sense. But how would it apply to dating? Now there is some circumstantial evidence of me talking with some single friends, but it was all subjective, and it was kind of a small sample set. And so I really wanted to get that broader, validation before jumping in, because you're right, the pitfall of any, technical person is just, I know what I'm doing. Since I had the idea, it must be good, and I'm going to go ahead and build it. I've done that before too, but this is kind of a time-consuming, effort, and there's an opportunity cost with all this associated, right? While every minute I'm working on Challengr and building that app, I don't have a full-time job getting paid, right? And me and my wife were trying to start a family, right? We'd like to buy a house. Banks like it if you have an income before you get a mortgage. It was kind of a team effort and a collaboration with me and my wife to just be like, okay, we have to be at least a little bit confident that this is going to be worth our while before let's just put our heads down, build, and hope for the best. Which is why I was able to find this. Which is why I put the effort into finding this online survey company. It's I think they're called Peoplefish, and for $2 a user, that was all it cost to commission that survey. I whipped up a Google Forms survey that they adapted into their platform, and it indicated the demo that I wanted had 25 to 35 singles, 60% women,
Oh, wow.
40%
So
men.
they were able to
They were
give
able
you
to
the
give,
demographics.
yeah, very
You can
specific.
specify.
And then they released the survey. It even included my little explainer video. I have this cartoon that I made that explains the concept, basically my first 30 seconds of my pitch. And so it guaranteed that they watched the whole thing, so they had context of everything, and even asked about the name, because Challengr, there's a couple people, I mean very small, usually a little bit of the older demo, that said, wasn't that the space shuttle that blew up? Are you sure you want that to be the name? But really, not too many people are associated with that. And I was kind of done working on something or working on a company where the name didn't really match the product. So I loved the name Challengr. When we played with some other things, but really because that the whole interaction pattern is centered around challenging, Challengr was nice. But I threw it on the survey. Is Challengr a good name? Do you like it? And everyone said it was great.
Yeah.
There's
It's very good name.
Thank you.
It's straight to the point what you're actually doing.
Right.
So that is really good.
I even tried, going the full way with it and removing vowels, so CHLLGR, but at that point it's Childr. It didn't make any sense. So just the last E to keep it concise. And so because of that, we got that great feedback that really gave me confidence to put my own personal stock into it. It gave me enough confidence to ask for some friends and family to do some investments, and it was certainly a confidence builder for our one institutional investor as well. So it was a big deal to do that, and I highly recommend it for anyone who is trying to go out there and I've got this good idea. Okay, well, spend $100 and validate it with a survey. It costs very little in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah. So this is very smart approach, and you make sure that you don't start into a path that is going to lead nowhere, and you're solving your own problem. And thinking that this is going to solve a problem to hundreds of thousands or million other users. Right. How big is your team?
Well, you're looking at the full-time employee staff right now.
Right. So you're employee number one, and the CEO and the CDO and
founder,
the CMO.
The whole shabam.
Okay.
But to say that I'm the only one working on this is kind of a misstatement. So that there is a huge group of people that are kind of helping me build this process. And first and foremost, I have to give credit to my wife, who also is an MIT aerospace engineer, but she is still using her degree. She's helping build the next generation in GPS for the Air Force. So she's very much an engineer, but she's also a very good product person and project manager. So every feature that is in the app today runs first and foremost through Sarah, and she's got a good eye for this makes sense, this flow is efficient. Why is this button here? It does nothing. So the entire product is flowing through my wife, even though she's doing this, in the hours between when she gets home from work and when she goes to bed. So I'm really pushing my luck with with her, but she's a saint on the whole thing, and I honestly would not have as polished of a product right now if it wasn't for her.
How many downloads do you have so far?
So we just rounded our 1,000th user just now.
Well, congratulations!
Thank you. Yeah. Especially since we haven't actually started spending for our marketing yet. That spending should actually start engaging tomorrow, which is kind of nice.
Perfect.
Because we just recently brought in the funding a couple weeks ago, so that recently hit our account. But all the users that we've gotten to this point have been through personal introductions at these live events and some word of mouth. So we're really, up until now, have just been sort of, just priming the pump with some users that we've introduced personally. But of those 1,000 users, we already have 600, 700 challenges. We have 1,000, 1,200 responses, and people are already starting to match. So we've already gone from even this small sample set, a lot of validation from actual users that this is actually something that they're understanding and they're liking. And we've also been able to sort of test the infrastructure itself to make sure it doesn't fall apart when we have 1,000 users or so.
How did you decide on the demographics of your customers? I know that you talked to some friends of yours, but how did you pick the demographics when you created your survey?
So that took a little bit of thought, and there was kind of a broad, in a broad sense, there are a lot of users of dating apps today, and they range all the way from 18 to even 65. So I did want to narrow it down a little bit, and really what it came down to was my initial thought was to go after the college demo, 18 to 24. This is a demographic that is really accepting of being an early adopter of new technology. They're always on the latest app, so I felt like it would be easy to break into that realm. But then, I got a sanity check when I was talking to a few other people and thinking back to my time in college, where college is a target-rich environment. You roll out of your dorm bed and you have a date.
Right.
Everyone's single, they're moving to a different area, and yeah, they'll probably be on dating apps as well. I mean, back when I was in college, 8 years ago or so, I didn't really need to use a dating app, but they also hadn't reached the prevalence that they have today. So yeah, they might be on it, but there's not so much of that anxiety or that dread or even the frustration of the dating app experience yet for those users. And on the flip side, on the other end, the older demographic, above 40, yeah, there's a lot of people on there as well in terms of dating apps. But again, you have the opposite problem where they're not so much accepting of being that early adopter or first user. They probably want a little more encouragement. So that happy middle ground of like 25 to 35, and probably even closer to 35, which is kind of where we're steering for, are people who have acknowledge that they hate the dating world right now. They're either frustrated with it or they're just now getting back into dating, so they're kind of looking at the broad spectrum of what's out there. And they're also more willing to pay for dating apps as well. Yeah. And you see that already because apps like Tinder and Hinge, they charge more for that demo anyway because there's a higher willingness to pay. And they're done screwing around, right? And so really it's that happy medium between, still willing to try something new, but still I need them to suffer a little bit. I need them to know how bad that dating app world is to really acknowledge the value that Challengr brings.
Right.
Right.
Did you test other dating apps before you started building your app?
Sure.
Or...
Don't tell my wife, but yeah, I downloaded a dating app. I downloaded the whole spectrum, right, just to kind of see what the approach is. And that actually educated a lot of the features that are in the app today. If you were to open up the MVP I created, 6 months ago, it doesn't look at all like the product that it is today. It was a lot more centered on your profile and creating the challenges, whereas now it's a lot more bare bones, streamlined approach. These are the challenges that you can respond to, and it even has a couple quick gesture type approaches that the other dating apps have. So I've kind of incorporated a few of those niceties that those other apps have, so that a user coming over, on the one hand, I need them to be frustrated because they've used another dating app, but again, they've used those other dating apps. So there is a certain level of polish and kind of, user interaction that they expect. You tap on something, you should be able to quickly cycle through profile pictures. There's a couple gestures that I'm introducing, but it's very rare that I do that. So for the most part, I'm kind of sticking where it makes sense to the paradigm so I don't confuse users, and letting my user interaction pattern kind of speak for itself and differentiate itself. So a user that comes on board Challengr is not going to be lost. They'll just be able to, use it like they would any other app, and just kind of experience the benefits.
You're talking about Challengr is only as a dating app, but I'm pretty sure, because I saw on your website that there is another category that is
Challengr Friends.
Challengr Friends, or Find Friends, right? Yeah. That way. And I know that is another a big area or big audience for app like that. And I'm saying this because here at Startup Bright we interviewed a few months ago a young lady that was building an app that has exactly that in mind, to kind of be able to break the initial, break the ice. And start conversation based on the fact that two people are actually in the same area and they kind of have similar things to talk about. Sure. And I like the idea that you ask for your customers to post a challenge and solve a challenge. That way they have something to talk about right away. You know, when they meet, they have a topic to discuss, or simply talk about the challenge, right?
Exactly.
So because usually that is the awkward part of.
Yeah, how do you get the conversation started? And that was complaint number one when it came to what are we solving is really that icebreaker, and to get something going. That's not hi or how's the weather or some pickup line based on a pun of your name, right? I mean, my God, there's so many of those. So even if you did summon the courage to come up with something, it's rarely responded to. So yeah, it's good that you mentioned the whole friends aspect, because we have built that in, and you can download Challengr, say you're only looking for friends, and only be presented with other people who are looking for that similar approach. It's just a matter of what's our marketing spend going to be like. I mean, we're a startup, right? So we have a finite budget, and we figured that it would be a little bit easier to attack that kind of eager and thirsty dating demographic, as opposed to just trying to solve through our initial batch of users that more generic, I'm trying to find the fourth person for a board game night, or someone to go rock climbing with. Because just in the same way that your challenge could be instilling a date to, it could be basically an idea for a first date, it can also be how do we build a group of friends in a new area. So I already knew there was value there, and I'm excited to pursue it. But as far as focusing our marketing efforts, we are really only saying it's Challengr dating right now. But I expect in the next 3 months or so, once we get that critical mass of users in the Los Angeles area, which is the only area we're really marketing in right now, then we can start turning on that lever of, okay, let's start pulling people in for the kind of friends approach. And there is even interest and some excitement about branching out to other industries as well. This interaction pattern, I feel, can be very powerful. Already has been demonstrated as powerful in a generic social context, just being a social network by itself. But as you said, it can be good for friends, but it's also would be a powerful tool for recruitment. So if you're trying to hire someone, instead of posting that job resume, these are all things that are on the long-term roadmap. But right now, we feel like the easiest way to get users onto this new platform is really focusing on that dating aspect. Plus, people right now are pretty comfortable paying for dating apps, so that's
right.
good for us.
So let's talk a little bit about the technology in the back end and data that you're collecting.
Sure.
So what is your technology?
What is
stack?
the technology?
What is
Yeah. Well, there's no web app, so this is a completely mobile platform.
They're native apps?
It's a native app. So the iOS app is written in Swift. There's a little bit of Objective-C glue code in there, but really mostly it's Swift. It's Swift 5.0. The Android side is majority of it is written in Kotlin, some lines in Java again, and the back end is the REST API is Node.js. It's got a couple frameworks inside of it that's really doing most of the work. The primary one being Feathers.js, and then there's a Mongo DB on the back. Every single line of code in the app and the platform itself, I wrote.
Okay.
Which is, I'm pretty proud of. I can count on one hand the number of people I know who can do that.
Yeah.
But I don't have to continue to do that going forward. There's a software development firm that I'm partnering with that is helping scale the platform as we grow. Mm-hmm. They're called Swenson He. They were founded and run by a couple of MIT colleagues of mine mm-hmm. who are out in the Culver area. So they just now started getting to work to really hit the infrastructure hard and
right.
and make sure that we can handle the growth. It's unique that we are live on both iOS and Android. A lot of startups today, you see iOS only, and Android's coming soon. They haven't started anything on Android. The last startup I was at, the Girl Network, was an iOS only app. But that's
hard to do,
right? I've got an iPhone at home, but my primary phone is an Android.
Yeah.
The gap between iOS and Android in the United States is quickly shrinking. So mm-hmm. You're cutting off half your audience.
Yeah.
Not to mention
Absolutely.
getting an Android user is way cheaper than an iOS user.
Right.
So, and for me, it's gotten to the point right now that software is so commoditized now. So a lot of the components, if you're opening any app today, the developer didn't actually write it. They're using some framework that they installed.
Yeah.
Same with Challengr. You go into that photo editor. I didn't write that. I integrated it. The login, authentication, all of that is powered by AWS. It's even on the mobile side. So it's really nice that I was able to pull these components in. And when you're talking in a native sense, there's, I always run into this argument, why aren't you just building a React Native app so you only have to have one code base?
Right.
Well, one, I'm not a JavaScript
guy. It comes with
there's a lot of caveats when it comes to that. Sure, it's nice to say that we have one code base, but there are problems there, and I've had experience running into those problems. But really now, if you're building a native iOS app in Swift, you'd be amazed. You can copy and paste that into Android, and the Kotlin and Swift, language is very similar. So I've literally copied and pasted Swift files into Kotlin and fixed, only 4 or 5 errors on a 1,000-line document, and it compiles. So it's very simple now to maintain it. And if you're very familiar and you're an experienced Android and iOS person, you can kind of architect both apps. So you jump from one to the other. And it's very simple. So I can actually whip out a feature on both native iOS and Android faster than someone can do it in React Native, because then you have to test it. Crazy.
And what do you plan to do with the data that you collect?
There's no plans right now to do anything other than use it to power the platform. We as part of our business model, we're not planning to sell any data, with the primary revenue coming from the subscriptions. This will be an evolving kind of strategy over time, but really, once we get to a point where our user base is substantial enough and we have, we have enough data that's worthwhile to sell in any sort of capacity. Hopefully I've already sold the company.
Right.
This ideally won't be a lifelong kind of pursuit for mine. But really, the data is all secured, and we're not really collecting too much personal information at all. Yeah, we have your Facebook ID if you choose to sign in through Facebook, or if you choose to sign in with your phone number, sure, we have that. But we're not collecting anything else. The payments are all done through the App Store and the Google Play Store, so we're not collecting any credit card information.
I guess my underlying question is, do you plan to put advertising, targeted advertising, and also eventually sell the data that you collect to third parties? Because a lot of social media networks and applications, they can go either way, either paying for the app or being supported by advertising. Some are actually doing both.
Yeah.
So
the free tier of the app, it's disabled now, but once we get to a little bit more substantial size, there's an ad-supported version that's free. But really, that's only the same kind of advertisements that you'd see in other apps, or the ones that show up on your website. So they're kind of cookie enabled, or your advertiser ID enabled. Or we aren't doing that. We're not selling any of that data or providing any additional user data that's not already on the device to serve those ads to you. So it's the same thing that Google or Apple already know about you. So no, our long-term strategy is not to sell user data as a means of revenue. With our primary source of revenue obviously coming from our subscription model. All the ads go away at that point. And really, since the value is there for it, it should be enough to sustain us.
Okay. What is your marketing plan? How do you plan to find now customers? You said tomorrow you're starting your
so
campaign.
It's going to be kind of a 3-pronged approach. We've already demonstrated approach 1, which is some in-person events. We've got this very pink, very bright canopy that we take to these events that says challenge-based dating on it. That's really is an eye catcher and brings people in. And that's how we introduce people in person. But there's only so many people we can talk to that way. So the other prongs obviously include pay-per-click. So we have our Facebook marketing turning on this week, as well as ads directly in the App Store and the Google Play Store. But those can potentially get expensive. So we're also veering into some of the influencer marketing. So we're trying to partner with some, social media influencers to really kind of get some brand ambassadors out there to get that word out. So we're still identifying some of those partners. Some of them have already been identified. But through that, again, it's all centralized in the Los Angeles area, because it does us no good to get 10,000 users across the U.S. I can't date anyone in New York, but 10,000 people in Los Angeles is actually a pretty powerful number. And with our, with the market size in LA of almost 1 million single people who are on dating apps today, garnering that 10,000, that's kind of the marker we're trying to hit right now, 10,000 monthly active users. That should be self-sustaining in the area and really power our next round of funding to kind of establish that traction.
So you said you're starting your marketing campaign tomorrow, right? Do you plan to do this yourself, or you?
No, fortunately, I don't have to do the marketing bit myself. Key as a founder or any sort of person who's trying to start something, you have to know where you're weak, right? And I'm not a marketer. So I was, there's a spectrum of people, especially in Los Angeles, who are well suited to do this kind of marketing approach. And the partner that I'd selected right now is, that's an agency called Hawk Media. They're out of Santa Monica. And so, I signed them up last month to really build our strategy to go at what platforms to kind of target, kind of massage the branding a little bit, do some audits on the app. So they're managing the Facebook campaign, the Google campaign, and all that. No, I don't have to do that bit myself. And they'll continually, monitor that, test some different creatives, and watch that performance as it comes in. I'm fortunate that I don't have to, bang my head about that.
Let's talk about funding. You mentioned that you had your friends and family around already. Can you talk a little bit more about how you did it, your experience?
Sure. Yeah, it's a tough nut to crack. That funding egg, and how do you actually get that first dollar? It actually factored in early in the decision between me and my wife if this is actually worthwhile to go after. I mean, it's one thing to have a good idea, but if no one's going to fund it, you're just wasting your time. So early on in that conversation, while we were sort of brainstorming the idea, we also found some people who said that they would be willing to chuck some money at it. And so we've raised almost a couple $100,000 right now. Only about 40 of that is through friends and family, and 10,000 of it's mine. In addition to my free labor, I'm still not getting paid, which my wife's not crazy about, but it's okay. And the rest of it really came from another VC, which I had personal connections with. So it's I don't really have a lot of suggestions for anyone to just find some investor. It's hard. All the people that have invested, know me personally, know that I can handle really any problem that comes about, and have a lot of confidence there. So right now we're still trying to get another $300,000. We don't have a valuation yet because we're doing safes right now. So we're looking to get some more safes to bring in, get to that $500,000 level. And that would give me enough confidence right now, reduce the risk to really get to that 10,000, almost 20,000 monthly active user base in Los Angeles, which should be enough to power an A round of about $1 million, which we'll use to, power the nationwide campaign.
So this $500,000 that you are having as a goal, how much runway
that'll give us about a year of runway. Right now.
So you're not planning to expand the team a little bit?
I am, and that's what some of that money would go to. I mean, obviously I'm already set up with some development help through Swenson He, so that and me as being a fairly quick developer, that's not really a need that we have right now. But where there is a need is for like community management, marketing. It would be nice to have a dedicated marketing person who's not me, who can oversee the agency and also help build the business development kind of approach. In addition to just the marketing, that we have as an online presence, we also have a mechanism in the app where we can partner with bars, restaurants, venues in the LA area, where we can actually do a live challenge at a location. And so making those calls to those bars, those breweries to say, hey, are you interested in doing kind of a co-marketing campaign? Right. That's something that I would have a full-time or even a part-time marketing BD person to really fill that gap. So if we get to this 500,000 figure, I'd probably be bringing on 2 people to really kind of fill that gap as needed. And the rest really goes into just paying for the marketing, because it is an expensive world out there, but once you can establish some traction here, the funds will start coming in.
Oh yeah, I'm sure about that. And you already have subscribers. Your application is already tested by your initial survey.
Yeah, it's not just an idea. It's a real honest to God.
And on top of that, you managed to pursue your family and friends to invest in your startup, which is test number one. To make sure that it's not only in your head, but other people are also seeing value in what you're proposing, right? And I'm really I like what I hear, because if you read Lean Startup or any other methodologies about how to start a business, you're pretty much following everything that is in these methods to not spend too much money, not be too invested in a specific idea, but be ready to pivot as you already did, right? Yeah. So I'm pretty sure that you will be able to find the funding that you need. Do you have an exit strategy? Have you thought about it? You mentioned eventually selling the company. But
yeah, so I mean, our ideal approach, is to continue what we're doing now, assuming that once we get to a position of acquisition, we'll kind of take that when it comes. But really, our near-term goal over the first year is to get to that A round. And really go nationwide before really entertaining that notion of, okay, should we pursue an acquisition? But we feel that once we get that next $1 million and we're establishing traction in multiple cities, that will be a strong target for acquisition from the larger players in the space. Obviously, the Match Group is a huge buyer. I mean, right. there's a dating app acquisition almost every month right now. So the industry as a whole is kind of in a period of acquisition, and Facebook is now an entrant into the dating app world, but they're also no stranger to buying smaller companies. So yeah, they have their own dating app, but Facebook, you can buy us, so that's fine. And then Spark Networks, the network that has all the dating apps for like Christian Mingle, Farmers Meet, that kind of thing. They're also, have made some very recent purchases. And then there's also
if you look at, I hear about all these dating apps, and if you hear about how they're structured and positioned, they actually are trying to get or to do what your application is doing, meaning specializing for groups of people that have similar interests.
Yeah, the apps that really seem like they're able to garner traction, quickly and almost easily are those ones that go after those niches, right? Because if you have a niche that you're really into and there's a dating app for you, you're going to download it without very much convincing. But realistically, those apps that are out there, the only thing that differentiates them is the branding message behind them. I mean, there's nothing stopping me from joining JDate, and I'm not Jewish, right? But just because the branding is out there. But really, once you get on, the interaction pattern is the same, right? You're still getting matched with people, you're swiping left and right. Even those apps that say that they're different, Bumble, Hinge, whatever, you're still swiping. It's all the same.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I even heard of an app that is, I don't know if it still is out there, but I think it was something like dog.
Yeah, there's a one for dog lovers, which
but again, it's the same thing, right?
It's the same thing. It's just
find
some branding for that.
And brand it.
The problem, and that's fine, but I as a founder and as a person who wants to make money, would be very hesitant about creating a niche-based dating app in any demographic or any specific interest, because you're narrowing your audience so much when you do that. Already you have to convince someone to try your product, and if the people you're trying to convince now also have to fit another bucket, you're really kind of out of luck. Which is why the Challengr as a whole is very exciting in that it takes those underserved markets, like there's no dating app for rock climbers out there. There's no dating app for hockey players. But you go on Challengr,
and it's going to be really hard to have an app for every single
right.
group
And
of people.
It doesn't really make sense for anyone to build
Yeah.
one, right? Because the potential's not there. But on Challengr, you open up the app. There's a search bar right on top. You search for rock climbing. Boom! All the rock climbing challenges are presented to you right away. So it's a niche-based dating app and a general app. So yeah, if there's people out there who share your interests, they're going to expose it through their challenge. And so, come on over. If you wish there was a dating app for your specific interest, Dungeons and Dragons, it doesn't matter. You'll find it on Challengr, especially once we get to the size that we're looking to get to.
Right.
So that's another one of the many value propositions that we have out there.
What is the minimum amount of investment you're looking for?
For one check size, I mean, $10,000. Yeah, well, we're taking it from all over the place. We really feel like if we get it there in pieces, if we can get a lot of people kind of bought in onto it, and we're still looking to find advisors and even a board member who can really give us that edge when it comes to insights in this industry itself. So we're looking to get help wherever we can find it. It doesn't necessarily have to be capital, but the money is helpful. So we're looking to get there in pieces. If some VC or angel comes along and they have a $300,000 check ready to go, we're going to take it. But I would be surprised if that happens. So we're very comfortable getting there in pieces.
Okay. Well, I want to thank you for being on Startup Bright.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This was fun.
And I would definitely try to contact you again in 3 months, let's say,
sure,
and see how you develop.
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
We'll be all set then.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.